Captain, incoming message.
Hey everybody, I'm George,
I'm Jeff.
and this is a special about the baby space jellyfish, or otherwise known as episode 4 of Picard season 3.
So my question is if you run into one of those things with a ship, does the ship have to piss on itself?
It makes you wonder. So, I mean, I think those baby jellyfish didn't even care about the ship, but I think Riker and Picard knew that if they stuck around too long, there were
Mommy jellyfish was gonna.
Well, no, Mommy jellyfish was out of commission. But like, remember in the Next Generation where they had baby space aliens that were feeding off the Enterprise, the energy. Remember
True.
the one episode where they had that weird-looking thing that just attached itself to the hull, and yeah, like they didn't want to have that problem with the Titan because the Titan's already screwed
Got
up.
holes in the hull.
Yeah, I mean that thing. So yeah,
We go from eating ships to eating asteroids to baby
and
jellyfish.
it looks like Vadic is a frickin' changeling. Like, who would have thought that?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not that surprised, but she's definitely a changeling. Like, part of her hand was a changeling. Like, she literally, it looks like she slices off her hand with a knife.
To talk to their whatever.
Yeah, to talk to the hand.
Yeah, talk to the hand. Bring a whole new meaning to it.
Yeah.
Or idle hands.
Well, all I know is she cut off her hand and that thing was fucking ugly.
Yeah, with like a half skull, half, I don't know, somebody you bring home on a Saturday night at 2 a.m. from the bar.
Yeah.
I bet he gives a great hand job.
Well, I would
Or would it be a blowjob at that point?
Well, what I think is it's like it's a crack. It's like somebody that's really on crack. Like that thing looks like it is cracked.
Well, she looks like she's on crack.
Well, she just cut off her crack smoking hand.
She's got another one.
Yeah, but that one's not. That one doesn't turn into an ugly face.
That we know of yet.
Yeah.
And she grows it back.
No, she has it reattaches.
Oh, does it
itself.
reattach?
Yeah, it reattaches itself.
It's growing it back.
Yeah, basically, it reattaches itself, and yeah.
So she's got a parasite. I'm sorry, folks. My needy little puppy here decided to come and join us today for our review. But she's got a parasite, not unlike me. But would she be a full changing? Maybe it's just her hand that's part changing.
See, now I know Memory Alpha says that she is a changeling, so I don't know how accurate that is. I mean, we're talking Memory Alpha being that wiki that's publicly editable,
Yeah.
so I don't know how reliable that is.
And wouldn't she just be able to, I don't know, not cut her hand off to talk to it if it was?
If it was really part of her, she would be able to control that.
Yeah.
So I think that, like, whatever.
She's still in control of her.
I think she's still her own thing, but I also think that changeling, like at some point, she had her hand cut off, and that changeling dude decided, I'm going to be your hand, and you're going to do.
Her James.
Yeah, I'm going to be your hand, and you're going to do everything I tell you. So, and they kept referring to Jack Crusher as an asset, and we saw like that flashback that he had. That now this new questions. It's like, okay, what other things is this guy hiding from us?
Is he gonna bring the apocalypse?
Yeah, like
Because it was like red fire everywhere.
They call him, yeah. So they call him an asset, and it's like, okay.
Are you sure they weren't calling him an ass hat?
No, asset. And they weren't, like if he was the prisoner, they wouldn't call him an asset. They would have called him a prisoner.
Yeah.
But they referred to him as an asset, like they're expecting to use him for something like
destroying the
So
universe.
the real reason why they were actually after him is because he's the key to some of their plans, and
prophecy.
So that's definitely interesting. Oh, Captain A-Hole finally came out of the closet.
Yeah.
and said to everybody, "Yeah, I'm an asshole." The asshole made up for the lack of charm or something like that.
Yeah, and blamed Jean-Luc for some more shit.
Yep. And
For him being an asshole, actually.
yeah. And then in the the conversation with him and Seven, when Seven was trying to talk to him about the something, I think it was like the changeling.
Yeah, the changeling.
Either way, yeah, because he was trying to tell her how to find a changeling because she didn't have any experiences with them, and of course in the panel, this picture where they show where she was looking him up, there's a picture of Odo there, and so that was a picture of Odo's bucket, so. We already knew what Odo's bucket looked like, and then of course that changeling had an identical bucket. Well, in that conversation, he makes a comment and basically says, "Yeah, I'm a dick."
Yeah,
it's like so twice in the episode he admits to not only being an asshole but a dick, and then in the conversation with Picard in the holographic bar, he's a dipshit from Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in the end of it, Picard's all like, "Yep, even though you're just a dipshit from Chicago,
we need your help." Because even though all that ship was refit, an old grease monkey, because even though that ship was refit, everything underneath is still a 20-plus-year-old ship,
yeah.
and all the young ensigns that are on board the ship have no knowledge on how to hotwire it. They don't know the innards. They don't know anything about it. All they know is the stuff that Starfleet Academy taught them about all the new shit.
Ooh, pretty buttons and lights.
Yeah. So then as far as being able to make that thing do what they need it to do, well, that's when Captain Shaw is finally starting to redeem himself.
Yeah. When he realizes he's an asshole.
Yeah, I think that near-death experience and realizes the people that he was mistreating are actually actively trying to save his life and everybody else's. Like, he fell back, and they stepped up and showed to him why they're the legends that they are, why they're good at what they do, because there's no way in hell that Shaw would have been able to pull off any of that shit.
Yeah.
Like, this was literally like a page out of The Next Generation. Like, this was literally what that crew is famous for doing. Like, just like that conversation that they had was, you know, if we're going to die, we need to make sure we die doing the things that we know that we do best, which is, I don't know, getting out of fucked up situations, like winning the no-win scenarios. Like, that's the name of the episode.
Coming up with surfing on the wave of energy.
Yeah.
Birthal energy.
Yeah.
He's having contractions. We're going to ride those waves.
Yeah. And then it's like opening up the nacelles to suck in all the energy.
Yeah.
I mean, this was definitely a really good episode. And there's so much stuff with it. Like the fact that the changeling changed twice. And
three times, wasn't it?
Three. Well, no, it was twice that I know of. So they were looking, they were talking about finding him because they already knew there was a changeling on board. And the answer, and Shaw was like telling Seven, like, no, we don't need to scare the crew yet because they didn't want. And it was right. I think it's either that.
Well, does it change once from the 12th?
I think Riker also was telling her something along those same lines as like, I could reinstate you, but if you're acting in an unofficial capacity, we'll have an advantage here. So she's literally doing things behind the changeling.
Yeah.
The changeling thought that she was still in trouble and not in any authority. Meanwhile, she's doing all the things that she would be able to do normally without the stigma, without the big old flag on her back. And
how about how she caught the changeling? How she knew it wasn't her?
Yeah.
Calls me Seven out of respect.
Found the changeling twice. Blasted him with a phaser so it just goes into the boards. After it tries to kill her the first time, she blasts him with a phaser. He disappears into the crevices of the ship because first he destroys his own bucket. It's like, well, now you're just
you're screwed.
Yeah, it's like, well, you just destroyed your home, bro. That was your room. That's where you sleep in. That's your bed. Yeah, and so he. So
I'm sure you can find another bucket.
So then shows up, and of course, the changeling was pissed off when it decided to show up as Ensign LaForge.
Yeah.
It was very obvious that this changeling was upset. It was pissed off. It was really trying to get revenge. Hey, you're, if you got one nacelle open, you can still fly but not go to warp, right? Yeah. And next thing it knows, it's got a fucking phaser in its face. And
it's getting turned into a puddle of goose.
And because Seven's right there, ready to fire at it. And yeah, so of course the
Change
trick.
This.
Yeah, so the trick with the changeling and identifying them is asking the changeling something that only the real person would know.
Yeah, which
You know?
is as in the Forge only addresses Seven as
Commander Seven, not Commander Hansen. And it's like she never wants. So this one goes Commander Hansen, and it's like like fucking blasted it, and no more change.
And nobody else would have known that either.
No,
No other members of the crew, because even the captain didn't know that. Ensign LaForge addresses her as Commander Seven.
Yeah, so I got a few criticisms of some of the way the animations that they handled with the changeling. So first off, in DS9, whenever they would shoot phasers at like Odo or something, he would open up a hole in himself and let the phaser pass right through. These changelings are taking the hit, they're turning to jelly in the area they're getting hit real quick, and of course the phaser's burning off part of them. That's gotta fucking hurt.
Oh.
And but then, when Seven shot the changeling and finally killed it, that was really weird because
It kind of looked like it cooked from the inside or something.
yeah, like it was still solid on the outside, like it didn't look like it fully reverted to liquid form. Like that didn't make any sense to me.
Maybe it was a setting that she set the phaser to or something.
No, I just think it's the way they handled the animation. It's just not consistent because in the old one, like whenever in DS9, whenever they'd kill it, it would immediately go back to a liquid form because it wasn't able to think to hold that form anymore. And then it's like it would go from like almost like a light coming out of it that shows that it's alive, but instead it would go dark and gray and dead and shit.
Maybe the changelings have changed.
And in 30 years, I don't think they biologically evolved that much.
Yeah,
so the changes in the animation, and I just don't. I think this is one of those changes that if this would have been the original way we saw the changeling, or if this was the first time we've ever saw a changeling, that would have been great. But because we've seen so much of changelings in combat situations, in living situations, and very personal situations, we know how they appear, we know how they act, and they could have stayed more true to the changelings than they did. So this was a lot of like the way they handled like the Klingons in Discovery, where they didn't even try to make them look like the original Klingon. Which is weird because we get Worf back in Picard and he looks like the same as ever, just old.
Yeah.
So it's like, why did they change the changelings when they didn't have to? I get it, we have better animation technology now, but those did not look like the same changelings that we had in the 90s on Deep Space Nine.
No, not at all.
But yet they are, so far, the story goes, these are officially the same race, the same changelings. They're from the Gamma Quadrant. They were the Dominion, and this is the faction that was pissed off that they lost, versus the majority of them that was like, I get it, we lost, we're done. We'll
be peaceful.
And, and so they weren't part of the Great Link, this faction. So, and I think the only justification that I could think of is maybe if they're away from the Great Link for too long, they start
becoming
different. Like the way, like their chemical properties and their morphing abilities, like their matrix breaks down or something. Because
and I would assume like any sort of species or animal, your environment is a big factor in your.
Yeah, but that doesn't make sense either because Odo was never part of the Great Link, except when he was a baby, and yet he behaved just like all the others. So that still doesn't explain why these are different, unless these changelings are on some sort of drug or something. I mean, we know that Dominion has a fascination with drugs, like the Nazis did.
Yeah.
But instead of meth, it was Ketracel White,
which is
literally, well, no, like literally, like they engineered the Jem'Hadar so they couldn't function like without the thing, like their bodily functions would shut down completely if they didn't have Ketracel White. Like they were genetically engineered to be addicted to this shit. Didn't do anything but satisfy some biological craving for it.
Just
It's really fucked up.
kind of like meth.
Yeah. But hey, so that's going to conclude the free part of it. So we're, again, so like we did this week with the Mandalorian episode, we're also going to be releasing this free
On our Patreon.
on YouTube. So you can see the full thing, this full thing with the extended commentary. So if you've been wondering what it is that you're getting, beyond the fact that we're not putting 4K on YouTube, it's just 720p, you can at least see the full cut. So, but, so other than that, we will see you next week.
Have a good one, guys. Guys.
Hello.
I'm Jeff.
I'm George, and we are back. This is the part where we have our extended discussion on episode 4, season 3 of Picard. Again,
Fucking space jellyfish.
yes, the baby fucking space jellyfish episode. Like, where this whole fucking nebula was for the sole purpose of giving birth to these things that I hope we never see again.
I hope we do see them. I hope we find out that they can sting a ship and the ship's got to piss on itself. It's got to leak radiation on itself.
Oh, I hope they fuck up the Shrike. That would be so hilarious.
Oh, they're going to. You know they are.
Yeah?
I mean, you know, the space jellyfish are going to come back and save the day. Mark my words. Either Mama Space Jellyfish is going to come back and save the day because the Shrike's going to get pissed off and kill our babies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what? Because I can see the babies attach it. So we know in the TNG where we'd have these space aliens that were able to draw power from the ships or give power to ships. Because in the encounter at Farpoint, the whole premise of that episode was they had enslaved a sort of giant space jellyfish, not the same species, and used it to provide power, like these ridiculous advancements at the station. And so, but I see these guys getting hungry and realizing the Shrike has power, and they're going to want a nurse. And yeah, that's going to be really interesting.
I mean, imagine how much power they have to... The amount of power that... Or the size of the reactor they'd have to power their portal gun.
Oh, yeah. And on top of that, realizing how much power came out of just the waves from the contractions, enough to reignite the engines of the Titan.
Recharge their core.
We're talking about a ship where they had literally had just hours of power left, just 4 hours. Yeah, I think they were down to 4 hours.
And it completely recharged their core.
Yeah, like they got it to the point where they were able to not only turn everything back on, but go to fucking warp.
The Energizer Jellyfish, my friends, it has come.
Yes, it has.
Also, yeeting a fucking asteroid.
That asteroid.
That was the greatest thing that they could have put in this episode. Oh, you throw a ship at me, bitch? Oh, really? Okay, I got you. Wait, one.
Yeah, and then the best parts, too, were like, oh, did you just throw an asteroid?
Did you just throw an asteroid?
Goddamn right I did. Oh, yeah, and then the fact that Picard said fucking. Like,
yeah.
I have never heard Picard or Patrick Stewart say fucking ever.
I heard Patrick Stewart cuss one time, and it was in I want to say a TMZ clip, when, somebody shoved a camera in his face or something like that, and he was trying to get in a vehicle.
Yeah. I haven't seen that, but I did see a video where he was talking years ago. He was giving a speech somewhere about domestic violence, and he was talking about his upbringing because his real father was a piece of shit. That's why season 2 worked so well, because Patrick Stewart's real father was a piece of shit.
So that's where those real emotions came from.
Yes, like those were real. I think that woken something up in Patrick Stewart's mind, old trauma. But the thing is like, that family swore. The Stewart family swore. Like, he heard swear words all the time. And this is why it was so... That's why it's so weird, because we don't expect him to be the kind to be sweary. But fact is, he is.
He's English, so...
Yeah, but he is. He does, very clearly, like...
And it just rolls off his tongue too, like.
Yeah, well, all of the actors from TNG swear like crazy anyway. Like, I was watching a video on YouTube the other day, like a podcast. Gosh, I can't remember what it's called.
I'm pretty sure the only people that don't swear are Mormons and I don't know.
Like inside something with some actor. I can't remember his name. It was really good, but it was Jonathan Frakes, and Jonathan Frakes swears like crazy.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a show that I've ever seen that he doesn't swear in.
Yeah, he always does.
Yeah,
It's
literally.
like, there's always lines.
He must have
where,
been in the Navy.
I don't know. But
Swear like a sailor. But I'm bummed. That is kind of gay.
But no, fucking like they swear all the time. But it's like, but that asteroid, throwing that asteroid at the Shrike and just completely disabling that ship.
And he did it on the fly, like did it all, like literally while they're moving, like grab me that asteroid.
Yeah, like just lock onto these coordinates. Okay, cool. Hit the keel thrusters, let loose the thrusters, or let loose the tractor beam, and it launched it straight at that ship, and it, oh my gosh, like that, the Shrike took severe damage. Like it knocked out their warp core.
And they were bleeding power.
Like, yeah, bleeding power. Like this ship is now in the same predicament the Titan was in, minus the gravity well.
Bitch had to cut her own hand off. She got a rock thrown at her ship, and it almost destroyed. And now because she didn't capture him, she's probably gonna get her ass beat by whoever her master is.
Yeah.
She's having a rough day.
She's having a really bad week. And fucking, so like, yeah, so she's still got to get, like, these changelings are really after Jack for some reason.
I think he's their, like, Messiah. They're Antichrist. They're bringing upon the end of the world and the dominion of them.
Could be. I mean, we know he's not a changeling so far, because we haven't seen him. I mean, he's not, because
he's Picard's kid.
Yeah, because he's Picard and Beverly's kid.
Unless Beverly's changing. Or Picard's changing.
No. But we
You don't know. They could be. It's possible.
Well, Picard's an android now, so.
Well, okay, good point. Shit.
But it's like, and this Beverly knows way too much about their adventures and them to be a changeling. Like, the things she knows.
She's a hybrid, like.
Yeah, there's no way that this isn't Beverly. So, but as far as like, it's like Jack, it's like he's got some sort of like sleeper, like he's like a sleeper agent of some sort. Like he's got something, like maybe
Russian collusion. Russian collusion. I got it. It's Russian collusion.
But maybe he's got an implant. Maybe he was.
But with the changelings, they don't do implants. It's a Borg thing, right?
Oh no, they could do implant in solids. This is Star Trek. They got the technology to do it.
Yeah.
It would make sense to put it in a solid, because why do you think he's having these nightmares? I bet you those are induced. And if you notice, they happen right after.
So kind of like her hand. Part of him is.
Yeah, like I bet you, like right after. Now, so right after all of this happened, he's having those nightmares while the Shrike is all fucked up. And it's like, okay, well, two things happen. The changeling demon-looking thing is pissed off.
The ball sack with the mouth.
He's pissed off. The Shrike is all sorts of fucked up. And now Jack's having nightmares. It's like, I think his well-being is tied to that ship.
Yeah.
I think he's might be like required, like he has to be within proximity for this implant to
like almost like that
to
ship
not
is,
have nightmares. Yeah.
Almost like that ship's part of like a biological, like some part of that ship is.
Well, it doesn't have to be biological. It can just be transmitting a signal on a certain frequency to keep the nightmares turned off.
True.
So, I mean, we'll see what happens in the next episode, but this is what I'm thinking, because, like, yeah, fucking, there's got to be a connection between why is he having nightmares right after all this shit went down.
I think it's because she's in pain, not necessarily him, but the bitch with the fucked up hand that she cut off. Because yeah, when you see the asteroid hit and she's being given the damage report and everything, you can visibly look at her face and she is just starting to, like, she's like, I'm dead. It's that look of, I failed, I'm dead.
Yeah, like she has to find us, dude, because...
So maybe they're connected.
Yeah, they could be connected, or she's just a pawn. Maybe she's a mercenary. Maybe she's somebody that owes a debt to the Dominion. Or maybe she got roped into this faction because, well, it sounded like a good thing at the time. And
or
now
maybe it's because they gave him that badass ship.
And yeah, so we still haven't. Now we know there's certain characters we haven't seen yet. We haven't seen Laura yet. We haven't seen Moriarty yet.
Yeah.
We haven't seen LaForge yet. So that's going to be interesting how all of this ties in. So they're going to a starbase at the end of the episode. So I think this next episode we should be meeting LaForge.
Yeah.
Which would be cool. And
the other thing, Worf and Seven, I want to see them fight so bad.
yeah.
So
yeah, who would win?
Who would win, Worf or Seven? Both of them in their own rights are complete beasts when it comes to their martial prowess and their kill streak rate.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got Seven, who's an ex-Borg drone. Nobody can defeat her.
Nope.
You get Worf, this highly trained Klingon warrior, who's nobody's going to kick Worf's ass. Nobody did.
Yeah, but nobody else will kick Seven's ass.
You know who could beat Worf though?
Who?
A Blue Barrel.
For a second, I thought you were going to say Spock.
Blue Barrel. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
And,
yes, I do.
It beat him so bad he wanted to kill himself.
And it's true. It's so sad that it's true.
It is. But yeah.
You know what also beats Worf, right? Blue balls.
But yeah, everything, unless you're a Blue Barrel, you're not kicking Worf's ass. So it would definitely be interesting to see if Seven versus Worf. I don't think we'll ever get to see that. So this show is supposed to be like a segue into a new series. So I think as we get to the end of it, there's probably going to be a Titan series. That's what I'm expecting. This ship is so cool in its own right that, because it's an exploration class ship, why are they throwing it into this nightmare
of combat? And
yeah, of shit that this ship was literally not designed.
Why are they
to
still
do.
making exploration ships when every time they make one, it goes out and it gets into some fucked up shit where it needs a lot of guns?
I mean, we're talking a Constitution 3 class. It's just...
the Federation just needs to start giving their guns more, or their ships more guns.
Right, and instead they send out a ship that's got... Well, actually, it wasn't the Federation that made this choice. That was on fucking Picard and Riker. Because remember, it was the refit. This ship was originally the Luna class, and they rebuilt it into this Neo-Constitution class.
Then those two are retarded because they're the reason that all the exploration ships get into some deep, dark, nasty shit.
Yes, they did. Remember, even the
So
Galaxy
they were playing
class,
Fuck My Buddy.
Yeah, because remember, even the Galaxy class was meant to be an exploration. It wasn't meant to be combat. They used it for combat. And
they use everything they get for combat. They're throwing asteroids at bitches, for Christ's sake.
But it's like in the Dominion War, they tried to use the Galaxy class in combat against the Dominion, and it proved to have so many flaws that they were just getting destroyed left and right because they're not a combat ship. They're too big. And because what did well in the Dominion War were the smaller ships, more maneuverable, things like the Jemadar ships, the Defiant, even the Cardassian Galore warships were much better equipped for combat.
Well, you know why? Because they're called warships for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, but then the Federation's we're going to send all the Enterprise D's ugly cousins into battle. We should be okay.
I suppose technically you could consider those tanks are going to soak up a bunch of the damage, and they're going to kind of.
Those were ships that would have been useful if they had to rescue a bunch of refugees.
Or just take a bunch of shots.
Those would have been useful in a support role, but not so much to be frontline fighters, which they were using them for.
I understand that, but they still soak up a significant amount of damage compared to some of those smaller ships.
Oh yeah. I guess they still had to sacrifice the big ones that could take a lot of the hits, so the little ones that couldn't take all the hits could do the real damage.
Yeah, you got, there'd be something akin to in Battlestar Galactica, you got your you know what I'm trying to say. You have there'd be your fighters that come out and engage the enemy as you're literally just soaking everything up.
Yep. But yeah, either way, it's like...
Why doesn't Star Trek have, like, smaller, single-manned aircraft for fighting?
They do. So, in Star Trek Insurrection...
Oh!
There was the Peregrine fighter that Data stole.
I completely forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah. So, we did have... And...
But that's the only real reference to... Or, well, there's not...
Yeah, that was the only... So, because the... They weren't... The Federation, especially in the time of the Dominion War, wasn't fighter heavy because it didn't make sense for their strategy. They needed the smaller ships because the Jem'Hadar and the Dominion were fighting back with smaller ships than the capital ships they usually fight with. I mean, a Galaxy class versus, say, Burrell Bird of Prey was, more realistic a fight versus being a Galaxy class versus a swarm of Jem'Hadar ships that could just swarm the larger ship. And they couldn't put out enough phaser and weapons fire to keep up with that many fast-moving targets that are small.
Hence the need for single-man piloted aircrafts.
Yeah, but they, and then the real shame with that, we gotta get back on topic here, but the real shame with that was that they didn't have more Defiant-class ships. There were only 3 that we knew of in Deep Space Nine. So there was the original Defiant.
Yeah.
That got destroyed. They rechristened the Sao Paulo to become the new Defiant.
Yeah.
The third one was a training ship that cadets used for actual training.
So it was driven like a rental car.
Yeah. So it was never meant to see real combat, but yet things happened on it. There was an episode that involved shrinking a runabout down to the size of an RC car, and it was really fucking interesting.
Honey, I Shrunk the Car.
Yeah, Honey, I Shrunk the Runabout.
Yeah.
But either way, so they're taking this exploration class ship. There's a reason they're calling it the Neo Constitution, the Constitution 3. The Constitution class was never a combat vessel.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, it was armed well for its time. They gave it, good teeth, but they didn't give them enough teeth for actual real combat.
Which is, to me, asinine. If it's going to be an exploration ship, a ship that's out on its own, exploring shit we haven't explored yet,
they should have some of the best.
They should have the best weaponry you can get, because you never know when you're going to run into something that's just going to kick your ass.
Well, yeah, so it's
kind of like what we're going through now.
Exactly, and the only reason they survived this shit was because Picard, Riker, Crusher, and Jack Crusher aren't fucking idiots, and Seven, of course, is smart as shit, and finally we get Captain Shaw that finally he's starting. Yeah, he acknowledges he's a dickhead. He acknowledges he's an asshole. He's starting to prove himself as not trying to be an asshole. Yeah, I think he's starting to realize that maybe I need to stop being shitty to people just because I got hurt. Just because I got hurt in the Dominion War, just because I got hurt at Wolf 359, doesn't mean I need to keep treating everybody for generations until the day I die like shit.
Except for Jean-Luc.
Fuck Locutus. Because that was basically it, though. That's why he had that prejudice towards Picard, because he doesn't see Picard. He said, well, I read about your adventures, and it's not as exciting on this ship. Whatever. He
definitely hides the fact that he knows Jean-Luc, and he's, obviously been greatly affected by him in the beginning episode when he says he read about him.
But everybody that was at Wolf 359 in any capacity hates Picard's guts.
Yeah.
So remember in DS9, Sisko fucking hated Picard because he saw Locutus. His wife died because of Locutus.
Yeah.
And he had to rescue his son Jake, and had to leave his wife's body behind because she was under bulkheads and shit, and there was no time to get her body out of there to even possibly try to save her life. It was just gotta leave with Jake and hope for the best. And it's so he's never forgiven Jean-Luc for that. Because all he sees is what Captain Shaw sees is, fuck you, you're Locutus.
Which he's not.
No.
And
Especially this version of Picard being the synthetic android now, doesn't have Borg implants anymore. He's no longer, shouldn't anyway, no longer able to interface with the collective. And if he would have been able to, we would have seen some of that happening in season 2 of Picard.
Yeah.
But they never showed that he was interfacing, but they knew him. And I think in one of the episodes, like in one of the beginning, he identified himself as Locutus, and they knew him. And it was really interesting. But this episode really brought out a lot of evolution for Shaw.
Yeah, dude.
It's been a long fucking day.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, it's like Shaw really evolved in this episode. I still think he's gonna die a horrible death. I really do. Like this is like.
I think Worf's gonna kill him.
You think so?
He's gonna talk shit to Jean-Luc while Worf's standing there, and Worf's gonna cut him in half.
It's either that or Seven's gonna finally snap.
Snap and break his neck.
Yeah, so it's gonna be either Worf or Seven. Like it's gotta be, because those are the only two that would not give two shits enough to say, fuck you, dude, you're done.
Or they give two shits enough to say, fuck you, you're done, because of the respect that they hold for Jean-Luc.
Exactly, like
Worf will 100%, if he said that shit that he was saying in the bar in this episode to Jean-Luc in front of Worf,
oh yeah,
he would get the taste slapped out of his fucking mouth.
Oh yeah, he would have been done for. Like they would have been he would have been another casualty brought into sick bay. And Beverly would be like, "Really? What'd you do this time? I just saved your life. You're supposed to be on the mend. What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah, then she's gonna tell her
what are you doing, running your mouth to a Klingon warrior for? You don't fucking do that when you're dying. Practically, you know.
You don't do that when you're healthy.
No, it's like this doesn't end well. Like
you don't talk shit about Jean-Luc in front of Worf, and you don't talk shit to Worf about Worf. Because those are two real quick ways to get deader than dead.
Yeah. So I think this next episode, whenever that comes about, like, it's going to be interesting. I'm hoping we meet LaForge in this episode, finally.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be, and, so depending on how many more episodes we've got.
I think there's 13 episodes in this season.
Yeah. So it might be good to start learning about sorry, guys. I've been talking about Lore and Moriarty. I really want to see how Moriarty feeds into this. Like, Lore makes sense because
usually on 2 feet.
Lore is the android that was at Daystrom. So
yeah,
so that makes sense. But why Moriarty? Where was I really want to know what happened to Moriarty after they shoved him in a little simulated holodeck. Not even a real holodeck, just it simulates an environment to where as far as Moriarty was concerned, he was living his life.
Until he finds out that he wasn't.
He knew that was going to happen, but they literally, in that episode when they finally sent him off after they convinced him to let loose the Enterprise, like they convinced him that this is going to be all the freedom that he was going to want, like he could do anything he wanted with no consequence. And, of course, with such a little container, like it's not an entire ship's computer.
Watch, he got lost.
He was it's no surprise that he ran out of entertainment.
He got lost in it.
I can't remember if they beamed him out into space. I can't remember if they just shoved him in a shelf somewhere or put him on a shuttle or a probe and sent him off.
I thought they beamed him out into space.
That makes sense. I'd have to rewatch that episode.
That's how they're going to find him. Watch. They're going to find his box out in space just floating.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to accidentally open it.
Or we're going to find out that he's been in there like for the last 30 years and he's fucking pissed because, oh my God, get me out of this thing. I don't ever want to go. Don't put me back in that fucking lamp. I'm not your genie in a bottle.
True.
But anyway, so this concludes this part of everything, but it was great for you to join us, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good one, guys.